Rise up, the Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. The crew is back, and now it's time to rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. Rise up, rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. The crew is back, and now it's time to rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. Rise up.
All right, and we're back to the D's on Fire podcast. We got a double Duke W Wednesday. Women's team caps off their historic home stand for the season, having the most home wins in program history from the women's basketball side of things. And then on the men's side, they took what didn't work against St. Louis and used it to make sure they could beat LaSalle tonight. That's how I'll phrase it best. They got destroyed inside the paint against St. Louis, and so they focused on destroying the paint tonight against LaSalle.
Yeah, it was, I guess, a revenge game in that sense.
Yeah,
especially like late, kind of when LaSalle was hanging around for a little bit in this game, especially towards the end. But the announcer said it every time.
It was tied at halftime, but even like through the first half, it felt like Duquesne was clearly the better team.
Yeah, and Williams and Reese especially, they took advantage of that the most, I would say.
Yeah. So Reese had a career night in points. Trey Williams, I think, ended with 16. Well, it's still technically going on, and we both stopped watching. It brought me back to vibes of when Duquesne was playing their home games at La Roche, and it was just like it didn't matter how good the teams were. Just the energy there, it's just soul sucking. And that's really what it felt like at the LaSalle gym from watching from home.
I thought maybe it was just me because I was late watching this game and I was kind of tired from work today. I'm like, I don't know, is this game just not that entertaining?
No, it was not. This was like how PMT says the real Warriors watching all the football action. This was the Duquesne version of that, where it's just like
this was the Texans versus the Jaguars on Sunday 1 o'clock slate.
Yeah, and it's not that these teams are bad teams. I mean, LaSalle's a solid team. They're a middle of the pack A10 team, and
it's really upsetting that you see the 7-7 record and we're 8-6. It's really, I don't know. I was personally upset when I saw that in the graphic.
Yeah. Hey, LaSalle was the hottest team in the A10 up until tonight. So
good for us.
Yeah. We're now 9-6. We're half game back as we're speaking on Fordham. They're playing tonight, so their game just tipped off. And then, of course, it doesn't really matter who. Like if we're a game back or a game up or even, really the end of the season game against them is going to be the factor as long as nothing crazy happens. So it's a solid win. St. Louis game is probably where we're going to touch on the most time-wise in this one.
I feel like we talked a lot about LaSalle to start off. We might as well just do it.
Yeah, let's finish LaSalle.
Let's start off positively.
Yeah. I mean, this is the most negative positive game we could talk about.
That's true.
It's the ref
more positive.
It was a total ref show on both sides. Like there was just so many ticky-tacky fouls. I mean, LaSalle was in position to get charges, but man, they were flopping like crazy to draw them. And the refs were by.
McGriff was on the wrong end of those. I felt bad for him because I just hate these college basketball charge calls. They drive me insane.
Yeah. The refs need to realize, like, oh, you mean if you blew on him, he would have fallen over? Okay, maybe not call that foul then. Like
and like when McGriff passes the ball and he hasn't had the ball for 2 full seconds, runs into somebody, and that's still a charge. It's like, I don't know what you want him to do.
Yeah. Speaking of not knowing what you want him to do, Kareem Rozier's first 2 fouls. I have no idea what they want. The first one, I really don't know what happened.
So I replayed that actually. This was like where the announcer. This was in the second half.
Yeah, the
And
announcers really didn't know what was going on. They never got an
the
explanation.
ball I think hit the top of the backboard, so it was called out of bounds. He he extended his arms and pushed the guy in the back a little bit. It wasn't a big push, but it was enough where if you extend your arms like that.
There was a big delay between that happening though and them actually calling it too.
Because I think only
I
one guy saw it, and
I
everyone else. I don't know, but that's I replayed it, and that's what happened.
with the amount of delay, I
The
thought he
second
said
one's
something.
more curious to me.
Yeah. Um, there was a foul called. Whoever was carding Trey Williams like kind of shoved his face, trying to get a
That,
rebound, and then
oh yeah,
Trey pushed him, and the announcers only saw the push.
yeah.
And
They didn't see the
admittedly,
elbow in his face,
yeah,
like the extended elbow.
admittedly live, I was with the announcers, and then I just hit the 15-second replay part, and I was like, oh yeah, I see it completely. Good call.
Yeah, that's all it took. Yep.
So yeah, that's the advantage of watching from home. We get to just press that replay, like, oh, what did we just miss?
It is really nice to watch on ESPN Plus, and I was late to watching this game. Was able to catch up during halftime and stuff by fast forwarding.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Let's see. I mean, we touched on the bigs dominating. Trey Clark and Day Grant kind of had rough games. Both had 4 fouls and got pulled a little early.
Ticky tack fouls again. So
Yeah. And Trey, I feel like Trey's just progressively kind of gone into a little bit of a funk offensively. Um, but I mean, it happens. He's got to bounce back. I don't know if he needs a mental break or what, but he's
I think maybe
he's
that had something to do with he. I don't know if you noticed, he didn't start the second half. They opened with RJ Gunn taking his place.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. I didn't think too much of it. Like you said, he's hasn't been playing his total best. His defense, he's still working really hard. He's had some dumb fouls occasionally, but that's kind of what you get with the way he plays defense. So, not totally worried about it.
Yeah.
Like you said, in a funk, probably just in a funk.
And these numbers are not updated because I didn't update them. But Zach Weiss, shout out to our non-official contributor to the show pretty regularly. He gave me updated plus minuses of the teams going into today's games. From men's basketball standpoint, the A10 conference leader in plus minus is RJ Gunn, plus 82. Second place, Quincy McGriff, plus 66. Third place, Day Grant, plus 53. Fifth place, Kareem Rozier, plus 43. Tevin Brewer next at plus 39. And Jimmy Clark, plus 28. And then Joe Reese and Trey Williams both were plus 27, plus 22. And then everybody else after that was kind of like barely breaking it or negative on the year. The biggest surprise, Matu Sronsky, minus 14 in conference play and minus 7 on the year. I like with how we've watched him play just from with our eyes. I can't believe that he always seems to at least be a neutral at worst.
Yeah, that is shocking. I would say it's not more shocking than RJ Gunn leading, and Quincy McGriff. I'm not too surprised about. I would think he's high, but I wouldn't have guessed he's second.
Yeah,
and we can get into that when we talk about St. Louis. That's why I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, both of those two guys had ridiculously hot games where that was like we completely dominated in. RJ Gunn, his dominant game against St. Joe's, and Quincy, the GW game. So those games definitely racked up huge positive numbers for them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But on the season, the leader's Day Grant for the plus minus for the men at plus 165. So non-conference, Day was just absurd because that's what plus 112 in non-conference play.
Yeah.
Unreal. RJ was second still, and then Quincy McGriff third at plus 92. So it wasn't just that was a couple games. Those guys were pretty consistent. Trey Clark jumps up to fourth at plus 88 when you include non-con. So, and then Trey Williams and Joe Reese are up there as well. I think the overall team reflects better in the just total season. I don't know. I mean, it's a larger sample size, but I think
Right.
that more accurately reflects kind of the value of the players because it's top 8 players there are the top 8 guys that get minutes really on our team, aside from Austin Rotroff, who, I mean, he's only plus 14 on the season, but he's a necessary component when he's on the floor.
Yeah, it's a little surprising given I know how great,
His
outstanding
analytic numbers are,
his
yeah,
advanced stats are. So his advanced stats are through the roof. So I guess it just has to do with the minutes.
yeah, um, yeah, and I mean, end of game where you're putting the guys up clear in the bench. Rotroff's most likely big unless it's Dixon, so that adds to it too. And I think that might have an impact on Ronski's numbers as well. That would be my guess. I actually thought he might get some minutes tonight, but he's been nursing a lot of things, whether it's injuries or sickness lately. So
Yeah,
um,
he was in street clothes for St. Louis, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
street clothes Davis. No, just kidding.
Um, so yeah, I think from a full picture, the guys team, it's still good vibes. I mean, somehow they didn't lose that St. Louis game by much, despite playing terribly in most just about every facet except one throughout that game. And the one was the 3-point shooting, which hey, I mean,
I said going into these games, I'd be happy going 1-1. You know,
yeah.
with both of these away games. So I still think that
And I
the St. Louis was tough because we could have won. It was a close game, but 1-1, that was the goal for me.
yeah, and you and I texted back and forth on like or I think we texted. It might have been tweets that I was making. Um,
One that's a fake Twitter. Whoever you're tweeting with,
no,
that's
it
not me.
wasn't tweeting with you. It was tweet. It's either the only times I talk 2K basketball, I'm texting you, I'm DMing Zach Weiss, or I'm tweeting into our account. That's really it. So yeah, the obvious fix seemed to be we just needed McGriff out there for Brewer or Rozier because they were getting beat by whoever they were guarding down low. They were just consistently bullying our smaller guys and getting to the hoop, which I mean, 70 points inside the paint, 70.
So we're going to St. Louis. Okay, all
Yeah,
right. You couldn't hold it anymore.
no,
Yeah. Let me pull up some of the stats. Yeah. So like you said, 70 points in the paint. Um, if you would have told me that Duquesne shoots 52% from three, not only a good percentage,
a
hitting
decent amount of
15,
shots.
15 threes, which is 6 above our average, and we're already an elite 3-point shooting team in the A10, and you lose that game, that's very, very hard to do. We shot 45% from the field, a good percentage. 70 points in the paint is like absurd. And um, here's another like way to spin it as well. They scored 90 points, right? 70 points in the paint. Okay, that leaves 20 points. Another 15 points came from the free throw line.
Yep.
So 5 points.
Well, they made the 1 3 that shouldn't have counted,
They
but
made
did.
1 3, and then they had the mid ranger from Yuri Collins off a pick and roll. I remembered specifically.
That was a very tough shot.
No, it wasn't because I'll tell you why. Because Brewer got beat on a like a wraparound screen, like dribble handoff, and that's the mid ranger that I'm referring to at least.
Maybe it counted as in the. I thought
This
he's.
was around the free throw line.
I thought Yuri made one towards the end of the game with Day like highly contested shot, but
No, the one I'm thinking of is off of Brewer lost Collins.
all right. Well, I was
And
thinking.
I said it because I rewatched this game, and this isn't good tape for Brewer. Let's just
No,
put it that way. It's not good tape defensively.
no. I mean, it
I
was.
have written down 7, and I don't want to pick on him too much because this is kind of what we know about him. Like he's just size wise, he just is at a huge deficit, and this was a bad matchup
Well,
for
I mean, we
Duquesne
had him on
starters.
Jimerson, who's like a legit 3 size wise,
Yeah,
and yeah, that's never gonna work.
Yeah, and across the board, it was a bad. Like St. Louis was big everywhere. Even Collins, he's not a huge guard, but he's not. He's got
No, but he
decent
can
size
use
for a point guard.
he uses his body well. He is one of the best pure point guards in conference ever. I mean, he's got the assist record, I think, for A10 play.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so and he it was I think that part of the reason that we played bad defensively is our key strength defensively is creating turnovers, and we could not do that against St. Louis.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. that,
I mean,
right.
Okoro, I will say this. When Trey Williams was covering Okoro, he made it very difficult. But then St. Louis somehow adjusted to realize, oh, Okoro, just get covered by somebody else, and then we'll feed you. And that worked out flawlessly for them.
Yeah. Um, he was good.
Yeah, I don't know the analysis in this one is so tough because the offense.
I think I wrote too many notes. I think that's
Well,
what
you
happened
you
here.
go through the list. Let's go.
Okay. So we went through the points in the paint and all that. Brewer, like I said, got beat a lot. And for him to be covering Jimerson for a lot of the game, like, was mind boggling. And if you when I rewatched, when Day Day was guarding him or Trey Clark was guarding him, wasn't nearly as effective. And some of those layups that Jimerson made, he just outmuscled him, like, just straight up. Brewer was still, like, he was in good position, but because he's the size that he is, he just
Can't do
can't do
anything.
anything about it.
Yeah.
Which is, so you brought up earlier that I was at the end, towards the end of this game, we kind of had a chance. It was a 3-point game, and Joe Reese tipped the inbound play, that was kind of crazy. But Brewer was still in the game on a defensive possession, in which it didn't make any sense to me. It was Brewer and Rozier in the game,
Yeah.
and no Quincy McGriff.
Yeah. And I mean, you texted me that this is something where you can point to Dambrot sticking with his guys maybe a little too much instead of adjusting to the situation.
Yeah, I think just matchup. I like Brewer a lot. I think he's a really smart basketball player on the offensive end. Makes Pretty much, he makes the correct decision every single time. I trust him with the ball in his hands, but on the other end of the floor, it's
It
a
was a clear
clear
mismatch.
deficiency. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Quincy McGriff has not only the size, but he's pretty good moving his feet um, defensively. So I don't know. And you let it off with the plus minus numbers, like that doesn't shock me. He led the game for St. Louis and plus minus for Duquesne, plus 11.
Yeah. I mean, when he's on the floor at the start of the season, he was our point guard when Rozier was out, or not Rozier is out. Brewer was out.
Yeah.
So like his skill set is absurd with how big he is to be able to be a point guard on offense. That just shows how mobile he is.
And you lose kind of the smart decision making, but he's not. And I'm not saying Quincy McGriff is a bad decision maker. I'm just saying
Right.
Brewer's
I mean,
that's his best quality, and you're not losing a lot of shooting. I think he's probably between 40 to 45% 3-point shooter, but McGriff is a good 37 to 38% three-point shooter. So you're not losing a ton there. Yeah, it was just something that stuck out to me a lot, especially towards the end of the game.
yeah. Trying to think if there's any other major things that I had from watching.
The only adjustment that I saw from Dambrot in the second half to fight that lack of size with Brewer when was on the court was he would sometimes switch if there was a pick and roll between Day Day's man and Brewer, like the three guards. You basically switch 1 through 3.
Yeah, which I don't know if that was really all that helpful because that kind of just again you could just target him
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
it.
And it happened in this LaSalle game. There were a few times where I remember vividly. I think it was in the first half where Brewer got switched on to a big in a pick and roll. He's defending the guy in the post, and all he could do was just foul him because he can't. Like he was alone on an island out there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, we get a few days off now before our next game, Sunday instead of Saturday, against Davidson. So that they already bounced back from that disappointing defeat. I was a little worried because we looked a little banged up at the end of the St. Louis game. I mean, it was a physical battle, not as physical as the Bonaventure game, and definitely much more on brand of like basketball with the offenses just dominating. But yeah, Day especially scared me with how he was hobbling around after trying to make that diving save to keep us in it. It was fantastic. Couldn't believe that we had a chance at all. And then it went from what great hustle to, oh my God, that could be the season if he was seriously hurt. So it's just like, don't ever do that again, Day.
That reminds me, that's another thing I wrote down. And they said this on the broadcast, and I felt this way when I was watching it live, and then when I rewatched it, I didn't realize how bad it was. Day didn't take a shot in the second half until the 9:35 mark.
Okay,
and he was hot going in.
Oh yeah,
he was hot in the first half.
Yeah,
so him not taking a shot for a quarter of the game, and I felt in the moment he wasn't getting involved in the offense enough. And he still had 22 points in this game. I mean, that's a smaller
yeah.
I have with it, but I mean, 10 full minutes and no Day shot when he's hot.
I get it, but at the same time, the offense wasn't the issue in this one.
I mean, I know, but I don't know.
I know.
I don't know. That was just like, because I think in an NBA sense, where the best guy on the floor on your team should touch the ball every possession, almost every possession.
Yeah, but that's not how our team operates either. Like we all try to get.
He was specifically hot in this game, though.
I know he was. I was loving every second of it. He was
perfect from 3 in the first half or close to it.
It's as if he knew they put up the wrong picture for the starter graphic, and he just took it personally. It was fantastic. Yeah, shout out to St. Louis for making Day Grant a white guy in the starting graphic. I got a text from somebody who's like a casual Duquesne fan this year, and he was like, "Is Day Grant white?" I was like, "No, he is not."
That's like one of the blacker names I've ever heard. Day Grant. Great name.
Yeah,
that was one of the first things I said when I think the first episode I did with you. I'm like, Day Grant. That's a great
name.
Fantastic name.
A star name, really. And man, I was talking about Zach earlier. He already texted me the updated women's plus minus on the year.
Are you paying this man? I mean, God.
I'm not. Pittsburgh Sports Now is, and he's doing a great job for them. I also caught him in a replay from today on a Meg McConnell layup, where he's part-time cameraman as well, and he was catching it perfectly. But the video cameras also caught him perfectly, so I sent him that snap. Yeah, from the women's side of things, the past 2 games in particular is pretty obvious. It's the Precious Johnson and Megan McConnell show. I texted you the stat line from Meg on Saturday. Saturday. It was Saturday, yeah. Saturday because it was a double Duke game. I was riding high, and then the St. Louis game just crashed my night. So that was fun.
So far for your undefeated
claim. Yeah. Well,
you rode the high, that's for sure.
There's definitely
no doubt about it.
And man,
you couldn't ride it higher.
Crashed going hard Saturday night. Could not tweet out much at that point. But yeah, Meg had one of the most absurd stat lines I've ever seen: 23, 18, and 8, with just shooting efficiently. Like she didn't put up a ridiculous amount of shots, and she hit a dagger to really close out the game, a dagger 3 to ice it with about a minute and a half, 2 minutes to go. And then I find out after the fact, I was at the game, and TJ McConnell was there somewhere. Nobody saw him, but everybody apparently found out afterwards that he was there watching.
Was he in a box or something? Or?
I think he was. I've never seen the
He
boxes
must have been.
used. I've never seen the boxes used during a women's game. And the McConnell family always sits in the same section, and they weren't sitting in that section in the game. And I noticed it. So I think the McConnells got like special privileges to be in the suite because TJ was there, which
Oh,
I
of
mean,
course.
understandable,
Oh, of course.
completely
Yeah, you
understandable.
roll out the red carpet for that team.
Yeah. So she put on a
and for
show.
her.
Yeah. And the first quarter in particular, our entire offense basically was Meg McConnell. I think we had of the 13 points, she contributed to 11 of the first 13 points, between 7 points and then 2 assists. So it was just her completely dominating first quarter. Second quarter, Precious Johnson, who's our sometimes starting center, sometimes off the bench big, has just been on fire. She had 21 or 23 points tonight. She had 18 points on Saturday. It's nice to see because she has a lot of potential, but she was missing a lot of shots earlier this year, and it seems like she's got her groove back. The women's team's playing their best basketball just at the right time, and you'll be able to see them. I found out after our last episode they switched it back. It is now all the games are played at Delaware, so there's not a first.
Cool.
Yeah, there's not a first home thing, but Duquesne will probably get a bye based off of how they played the last 2 games.
So when, because that's coming, that starts next week, right?
Yeah, I think it's Wednesday to Sunday. So like the
So is
Duquesne
their
won't.
last game Saturday or something?
I know today was their last home game. I think their last regular season game might be this weekend. Let me see. And then St. Joe's Saturday. So they're gonna be in Philly.
Oh yeah.
I wonder, they're probably gonna come back, but that's logistically kind of a nightmare because you could just stick around and then just make the shorter trip to Delaware. Um, but yeah, they've they've got a chance to get 20 wins if they beat St. Joe's or if they just win 2 games in the conference tournament. They're at 18-10 on the year. Um, yeah, you'll get to see them live. I'll get to hear your reactions to the team.
I hope so. I have a potentially packed schedule this first week of March, so I'm hoping
Oh
the
no,
day that it falls on
it's gonna be
is a day that I'm available. So
all right. Yeah, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
I was trying to tell somebody how like ridiculous Megan McConnell's rebounding stats are. How tall is she?
She's five. She's listed as 5'7", probably like 5'5", 5'6". But a point guard who's
Yeah.
not 5'10" or taller, getting
Yeah.
18 rebounds.
Yeah.
And she had 11 at halftime, and I taught Zach, like, came back. He was taking pictures like the whole game, but he came back at halftime. I was like, Zach, I'm telling you, she's gonna get more than 15, which is her career high. She's
Wow.
gonna do it. And then Amaya Hamilton, did not give her proper shout outs. She had the quietest near triple double of the season. I think it was 15, 8, and 8, which, like, she really started scoring in the fourth quarter. Like, she just kind of was the closer role in this one. And to put it in your perspective, this is the Ben Simmons, like, early on Ben Simmons-esque player who, like, was good offensively still, and she can shoot the three occasionally.
I'm pretty sure Ben Simmons averaged 15, 8, and 8. So
Yeah, this is she took over towards the end of the game tonight as well against Loyola Chicago. So that's a great role for her. She's great defensively throughout the whole game, and then in the fourth quarter she just picks up when everybody else is tiring and works out well. So I don't know. Dukes might be finding a groove.
I hope so. Hopefully that rolls into Delaware.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe we'll have 2 NIT teams this year. Maybe we'll have 2 NCAA tournament teams this year. A little harder to believe, but hey, it's possible. It's a lot more possible than we were worried about at many points during the season.
Yeah, I think I subscribed early on to like teamrankings.com, and I think they said for the men at least, it's like 5 to 7% chance that they make the NCAA tournament. That sounds kind of high to me.
That's higher than many other times in UK history. I don't know if we've had a higher one since we've been at school there.
Right.
So yeah, it's pretty good. I feel like the women's team deserves a lot more credit and talked about, but it was another kind of, it was close for a while, but then it was similar to the LaSalle game where it just felt like they were always the better team, and it was just a matter of time before the score reflected it.
It's
And
weird how these good wins
it's just
are
mirrored.
weird to talk about.
Still, like the records are slightly different now, but the teams just seem to keep such similar things going on. Yeah, I don't know. It was the Saturday game against Richmond was probably the best I've seen the women's team play as a complete unit this year. So when I say they're clicking at the right time, it really does seem that way. Offensively, they seemed a little, I'm going to say, robotic in the first quarter, aside from Meg, and then Zach mentioned it in his article, and Dan commented on it in his post game press conference. It was like they caught music and they started like getting into the rhythm of the game, and it really lit up the entire offense at that point. Lauren Wasselson has also been a big addition lately. She was struggling shooting, which was her strength coming into this year. She had a lot of injuries that she had to come back from. In the past 3 games, she's shot pretty lights out. Had a huge component off the bench, which I mean I talked about earlier this year. I was worried about because we really didn't have that. She's providing it. So yeah, it's all the things that we needed to happen has been happening on the women's side to getting the team better and better.
And that's a big deal for tournament style basketball, like the hot team going into tournament play. That's a big advantage.
Yeah, I mean the stereotypical picture is that Kemba Walker UConn Huskies, where they were like one of the worst Big East teams in the country, and then they just got ridiculously hot.
Yeah, I mean how UConn won with Kemba and Shabazz Napier, both very
mediocre. Yeah,
it's wild to think back
on. So who knows? Might have another NCAA tournament run in us. From the guys' side of things, I'm not too worried about Davidson. Davidson did win tonight, I believe. Yeah, against the Bonnies, and they beat St. Joe's. But for the most part this season, they've got 2 main players on their team: Foster Lawyer and I think it's Sam Menenga. I know Menenga is the last name. I think Sam's his first name. But there's not really like dynamic athletes on their team, and I feel like we are very good against teams that don't have those athletes, because then our team really shines because we have so many of them.
Yeah, and that was kind of I felt like St. Louis had a lot of athletes, Okoro especially, Jemerson with his size and mobility. So yeah, that does sound like a pretty good matchup if they aren't like St. Louis.
Yeah. And
I didn't do a preview for Davidson because we had 2 games to talk about, and Davidson's not that great. So
yeah, and we do get our rematch attempt against UMass right before our next podcast drops. It's RJ Luis is back and playing well. The rest of the team seems to have hit a bit of a stumbling block. I don't know how to put it. They're not all slumping, but they definitely haven't been playing as well as they did against us earlier this year.
That doesn't make me feel better because Luis felt like he single-handedly beat us. So,
That's true. That's true. But
I don't feel necessarily better about that.
they got their doors blown off by Dayton tonight, and then they beat. I'm going to go through their last few games to try and make you feel better here.
Okay.
So
all right.
We're going back to the beginning of February. George Mason beat them 70-59. The George Mason team that we just manhandled the whole way through.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Feeling better. Yep.
Davidson, who I just talked about, doesn't really have athletes, beat them 93-78.
Oh God.
Fordham then plays UMass 77-67. LaSalle, who we just dominated, won 86-72. Loyola
That is really surprising. That is weird.
Loyola Chicago, who is bottom of the league, won 64-62.
What is going on?
And then UMass rallied to beat Rhode Island, who is bottom 3 in the league. And then they got crushed by Dayton in their rebound game from their one win this month. So I really think
I do
that
feel better, but I am confused.
They
I do feel slightly more confused.
We were their last game in January, and then they fell apart after that. I don't understand it, and I am nervous just because it's our luck that they'll bounce back and just have a great game against us.
Well, that was kind of, I feel like that was the peak of Duquesne's like not being able to find their defensive identity.
Yeah, 100%.
So that I would say maybe they caught us at our worst. You could say, especially in conference play. So
yeah.
Again, I'm trying to talk myself into more confidence, which I should. I mean, we can definitely beat them. They're definitely beatable. I'm not that scared, but it is weird. It's just weird.
Yeah, and we are playing at home. It'll be our last home game of the year. So I think
that's true. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and the game this weekend on Sunday against Davidson is the Chuck Cooper Classic, where we'll be
USA
on USA Network.
Everybody, it's on USA Network.
It's probably going to be pretty packed because they're doing discount tickets where it's 2 for $15, so $7.50 tickets as opposed to $18 for general admission.
Are you going to that game?
I bought 2 tickets. We'll see if I'm able to get the free time to actually go.
Okay.
We'll see. I had credits from last year's. I was a young alumni season ticket holder, and the George Mason home game got canceled, so they had like credits carry over to this year, and I was able to use them for the 2 tickets for that one. So we'll see if I'm actually able to go, but there's a chance.
Fingers crossed.
And then basically all next week after we go through the games is going to be focusing on Fordham. That's 100%.
And seeing how the women do.
Well, we'll be previewing, I guess, the women's tournament. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. So we might have to do 2 podcasts next week, depending on like when the women go out. Like if they make it all the way to Sunday, we're recording a Sunday podcast.
No doubt.
Especially without football taking up any of our Sunday time.
This is our version of PMT's NFL playoffs. Like
this is it. This is the grind right here.
Yeah, this is what separates the peasants from the greats.
There it is. And we are gonna solidify ourselves. We are gonna be somewhere right above peasants, right above.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't think there's too much more we need to talk about. The one thing I will say about the plus minus that Zach sent over to me, and Zach and I talked about this when we first did it. Meg in conference was particularly low on the plus minus, and also the backup point guard was pretty low on the plus minus up until 2 games ago, which is crazy because there's never another point guard on the floor, and there were other players that were positive. So it's just nuts to see that the point guard position was floundering when we had some guards who were like Tess Myers was a plus 10 and Meg was like a -7. And it was just like, you're both playing the entirety of the games, basically. I don't understand how there's this big of a difference.
Yeah, some I don't know. Sounds fishy.
Yeah.
Sounds fishy.
Oh, and that's another aspect.
Though.
That is another aspect of the her dominant performance. She played all 40 minutes. She never came off the floor. So just again, like the best performance I think I've seen from an individual player on the women's side of things.
That's why you can't read entirely into stats. I try. Yeah. I find myself I catch myself reading too much into the stats sometimes and not like using my eyeballs. I like when my eyeballs and the stats are in sync.
Right. Then the team's
trustworthy.
Yeah. Then you think, oh, these stats might explain things.
Right.
And then when they stop working, it's like, never mind. It's
Right.
just yeah. So I don't know. I'm still pretty high on the guys even after that St. Louis defeat. We're probably not going to get. I still think there's a chance. Like there's still
For third, or is that
like I think there's still like a 2% chance, but it would have to be like uh St. Louis totally collapsing. Which
Fordham has to lose tonight?
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Well, no, it would have to be St. Louis loses out, and then we just beat Fordham in the last game still. Like that, we'd have to win out. St. Louis, I think, would have to lose out at this point, and then it doesn't matter with Fordham. We have the tiebreaker against them. But most likely, we're going to be the Flint Tropics playing for fourth place at the end of the year. So, but
That'll be
hey,
an exciting game. Well, we're kind of looking forward too much to just the Fordham
that
game.
game. Well,
Let's
hey, we
let's
did
focus on Davidson next.
we did touch on it. I like our matchup against Davidson a lot.
Yeah.
And when I've liked our matchup a lot against teams, it's typically panned out pretty well. And then UMass, we'll focus on that game. We will.
Yeah, I think there will be a sense of they remember how poorly they played that game, and that'll be a revenge game, hopefully for the guys.
Yeah. So till next time, folks. Hopefully we'll have 3 more Duquesne W's to talk about next time we talk, and yeah, it'll be a great.
Now we're gonna go undefeated. We're gonna
now,
go undefeated.
Now we hit the stride.
Yeah, that's right.
I was one game too early, folks.
Yeah.
Now we hit the stride, and you're the one that said it, not me. So
no, now I'm saying it. This is go time. This is
all right.
Time.
Let's go, folks.
Go Dukes.
The Dukes are back and now it's time to rise up. Rise